While you were distracted by other headlines, the Trump administration just committed American taxpayers to an $83 billion bill to rebuild Venezuela's crumbling oil infrastructure. But here's the kicker. The oil companies who stand to profit the most are refusing to pay their share. So guess who has to pick up the tab? You. And the real story behind the deal gets much worse. Now, it's not just about money. It's about your financial future being mortgaged for corporate profits. $83 billion comes out to roughly $250 per American citizen to subsidize oil operations in a foreign country. Meanwhile, your roads are crumbling, your schools are underfunded, but the implications run deeper. This sets a precedent that American taxpayers will bankroll corporate expansion anywhere the government decides to intervene. Venezuela's oil infrastructure needs $183 billion in total repairs. Experts say it'll take 15 years. President Trump says it'll take 18 months. Well, he's usually right, though. When it costs inevitably balloon, though, and timeline stretch, who is going to cover the overrun? The Federal Reserve? No, the same taxpayers already footing the initial bill while oil executives cash in their checks. Right. Now, it's not about money. It is about your financial future. I said that 250 American citizens subsidize $250 per American citizen. Okay. Hang on. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here we go. All right. The click. Which button do I press, Brian? Oh boy. Anyway. And speaking of critical infrastructure investments, there's something every American needs to understand about strategic resources right now is breaking news. While politicians debate spending billions on Venezuelan oil, defense contractors are quietly hoarding one metal that makes modern warfare possible. Now, I want to talk to you about a metal most people never think about, but governments and military planners obsess over daily. Now, I've talked about gold and silver for years, but the opportunity that's grabbed my attention is much deeper. That's why we're bringing it to your attention. I'm talking about critical defense minerals. One metal in particular, titanium. It's in every fighter jet, every submarine, every piece of advanced military hardware. It's even in my wedding ring. That's right. My wedding ring is made of gold and titanium. And right now there's a supply crisis that's brewing that could reshape global power. So while your tax dollars flow to foreign oil projects, smart money is moving into metals to actually power national defense. You can get the full briefing on SAGA metals in the description, but it gets worse. The press secretary just announced a separate $500 billion energy deal with 31 million barrels of oil heading to U.S. accounts. That sounds like good news to me. That's on top of the infrastructure spending, and Trump casually mentioned another 50 million barrels worth $4.2 billion on its way. Are these separate deals, or is the administration playing shell games with the numbers? Either way, American taxpayers are underwriting the entire operation while oil companies negotiate their exit from paying their own share. Now let's get into this here. Trump says the U.S. taxpayers will pay $83 billion to build Venezuela's oil infrastructure that will benefit the oil companies. Total estimated cost $183 billion. Oil company investment $100 billion. Taxpayer cost $83. Modernizing Venezuela's oil infrastructure.
In charge, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, adding that the U.S. is looking to help to pay for U.S. oil companies to rebuild Venezuela's energy infrastructure, a project the president says could take less than 18 months.
Experts point out modernizing Venezuela's oil infrastructure would cost an estimated $183 billion and take 15 years. Chevron is currently the only American-controlled company with operations in Venezuela.
Venezuela's oil infrastructure. Now, yesterday, the president met with executives from more than a dozen oil and gas companies at the White House to discuss his plans and push for their commitment. Now, the meeting happened less than a week after the U.S. captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a daring raid on his residence. Willie James Inman, is in West Palm Beach with Florida with more on yesterday's meeting and the initial reactions. Willie, good morning.
Kelly, good morning to you. President Trump is pushing those oil companies to invest $100 billion in Venezuela's oil infrastructure.
$100 billion. The massive taxpayer burden sets up the administration's defense of their Venezuelan strategy, and they're going to spin it, though. The press secretary on the success of Venezuela, we've had complete cooperation thus far with the interim authorities in Venezuela. You've seen POTUS has been able to cut $500 billion energy deal. 31 million barrels of oil are now making their way to the United States to be sold. The press secretary's rosy numbers lead directly to Trump doubling down on the oil deal's success. Here's more from Air Force One.
Venezuela is really working out well. We're working along really well with the leadership, and we'll see how it all works out.
Are you planning to meet with Delcy to go?
At some point I'll meet. Yeah, she's been very good. Look, she asked us, can we take 50 million barrels of oil? And I said, yes, we can. It's $4.2 billion. And it's on its way right now to the United States.
How much is that going to save in your wallet? Now, Trump's personal enthusiasm for the deal brings his energy secretary to justify the broader geopolitical strategy. Secretary Wright talking about Venezuela.
We're changing the game for what's happening in the ground in Venezuela. Venezuela has purchased $20 billion of Russian weapons. They've got Cuban mercenaries there. They supply oil to Cuba. They harbor the Hezbollah's headquarters for the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela has been a very dangerous, very destabilized place going down the tubes. And with the United States' influence now by controlling the sale of their oil and therefore the flow of funds into the country, we think we will see relatively rapid change, improvement on the ground in Venezuela. This is a process. We're only 8 days into the process, but it's off to a strong start.
Well, it's off to a quick start.
A quick start indeed. Wright's stabilization argument pivots to the real prize, American corporate expansion in Venezuelan oil fields. Secretary Wright on the resources.
In the long run, what will happen with Venezuelan oil resources? Yeah, of course, quite likely you'll see American companies, expanded presence there. You'll see growing production. Of course, you're going to see more American involvement in there. But exactly how that's going to work, that's going to unfold over time.
And we'll be tracking every minute of it. The promise of American company involvement leads Wright to reveal just how fast a transformation could, in fact, happen.
We had Chevron, Shell, Repsol, Eni, four of the biggest oil companies in the world saying we will immediately start ramping up our investments and growing our production. I've got a crew of American wildcatters that said we'll go down this week and start checking things out. We're ready to go. So the speed at which we'll see investment and the change in the trajectory of Venezuelan production is breathtaking.
The wildcatters are on the prowl. His claims crash into the harsh reality of regional consequences, starting with Cuba. Reuters reports the clock is ticking in Cuba as Trump cuts off Venezuelan oil. Oh, it's going to have a massive impact. The Cuba crisis connects to industry experts who say this whole timeline is a fantasy, though. Bloomberg says reviving Venezuela's oil industry will take years and cost billions of dollars, limiting the country's impact on global markets in 2026. That's according to Total Energy's boss, Patrick. Not even going to try and say that one. Not even going to try. So, the political firestorm is underway. And here's the moment of truth. Chevron is currently the only major American oil company that's operating in Venezuela. One company. We're spending $83 billion of your money to rebuild infrastructure that primarily benefits a single corporation. Now, it's not economic policy, it's corporate welfare with a national security paint job, and the math doesn't lie, and neither do the incentives. So the bottom line is simple. Your government just committed you to paying $83 billion to rebuild another country's oil infrastructure so American corporations can profit without risk. They won't pay their share because they don't have to. You're the backstop for every cost overrun, every delay, every unforeseen expense. This is the wealth transfer from working Americans to the oil executives wrapped in the flag and sold as foreign policy. So when this project inevitably costs more and takes longer than promised, remember who signed the check. Do you think American taxpayers should subsidize corporate oil expansion in foreign countries? Yes or no? And if you want to support us, check out the Next News Merch Shop for gear that asks the questions the mainstream media won't.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.